Hi everyone, Liberty Doll here. I wanted to make a quick video tonight about the Libertarian Town Hall that just aired on CNN. It is the first time that a third party has ever gotten that kind of media coverage and got to have a town hall on CNN. So I wanted to talk about it real quick. It just ended like 20 minutes ago, so these are immediate first impressions here. So my biggest takeaway from all this is that either CNN had an agenda or it is my libertarian conspiracy tinfoil hat going on. But they're definitely, tinfoil hat or not, there definitely seemed to be an agenda. There was 3 separate times that Gary Johnson and Bill Weld were asked questions about Trump and Hillary. The very first one started with, they said, well, let's play a game, like it's the Saw movies or something, and said, well, let's do word association. Now, I haven't watched any of the town halls for any of the other candidates or parties, so I don't know if everyone does word association or plays these little games, but they did a word association, and the only words that they were asked to make an association for were Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump. Now, Gary Johnson, for what it's worth, he tried to not fall into the name calling, even though he did call Donald Trump a pussy that one time. But he tried not to fall into the name calling and tried to come up with positive things for each of the 3 people. For the Donald, he was just like, well, there has to be something positive somewhere. And then Bill Weld said huckster, and I actually had to Google what that meant because I had no idea. It means someone who's trying to sell something, basically, for those of you that don't know. So there was that question. There was a question someone else got up and said, well, if you had to vote between Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, who would you choose? You know, the classic lesser of 2 evils argument. And of course, Johnson, you know, he stood his ground and he said, well, there's always going to be a libertarian pick. And so I am always going to pick the libertarian pick. And well, I was really hoping that this would redeem him a little bit for me. Being from Massachusetts, I tend not to trust any politicians from Massachusetts, no matter how libertarian they suddenly say that they are. He didn't endorse Hillary Clinton, per se, but he did say that out of the 2, she was more qualified, or is the only qualified one. During word association, he said something about some bond that they had at some point, which I found to be a little disturbing. But there was that. And then there was a third question near the end, and unfortunately the live stream that I was watching cut to a DVR screen, so I didn't hear the whole question, but it was something about, it started out, well, you know, if you knew that you were hurting votes from either party. So I'm assuming they were asking if you know, he would drop out of the race if he was hurting either of the parties, which is just stupid. Other than that, there was really strange questions. Someone got up and said, well, are you religious and do you pray? And Gary said that he's prayed a few times, but he doesn't go to church. And then the next question was, well, why don't you go to church? Because, you know, that really matters when someone is running government, why they don't go to church. You know, that's not something that you normally ask people. It's a really private thing. But anyways, there was also a question, it was brought up about how Gary has talked about marijuana legalization quite a lot, and it's known that he partakes in the pot. And he recently told USA Today in an interview that he has stopped smoking for his campaign and plans to, you know, abstain for the duration of his campaign. And so the moderator says to him, well, so if you're not smoking, people are going to be concerned that where's your policy consistency if you think that pot should be legal but you're not smoking pot anymore? Because apparently personal life and policy are the same thing. I don't see what choosing to not smoke has to do with suddenly flip-flopping on policy. But there was that. So like I said, there was a lot of questions that seemed like they were trying to back people into a corner. A woman stood up at one point and talked about how her 16-year-old did heroin this one time and got really sick and ended up with brain damage, all this stuff. Very sad story. And then when Gary said, well, you know, your son was a victim of prohibition rather than crime or evil drug dealers or whatever, and talked about programs, harm reduction programs that have worked in other countries, needle exchange programs that we have in the United States. There's a few clinics around here and there that do that. She got very visibly upset and accused him of trying to keep people addicted to heroin, which he did counter by saying, well, you know, the US has the best policies for killing addicts, which is absolutely true. And he brought that up again when someone from the Black Lives Matter movement came up and asked a question about whether or not he supports Black Lives Matter. He talked again about the drug war and how it hurts persons of color and you're, you know, 4 times more likely to get a conviction or go to jail or whatever. So that was a nice little tie-in. He did get to talk about economics a little bit. And of course he got attacked for it because, you know, that's what happens in every debate with a statist ever. You know, you're either wanting to kill children or wanting people to die or wanting people to be addicted to drugs or whatever it is. So that came up a bunch of times. Like, you know, I'm surprised they didn't talk about the roads. I thought it was going to get pretty close there for a minute. But he did say if he could wave the magic wand, he would abolish the IRS and get rid of taxes and all that fun stuff. So that was pretty cool because taxation is theft. And there was another question about, someone said, well, hey, if you get rid of Obamacare and you have free market health insurance and someone opts out and they get sick and die, that means that you as a libertarian want people to die. So again, with these really false dichotomy, you know, extreme arguments, and, you know, he countered that, of course, saying, no, we don't want anyone to die. So, I mean, some of the questions seemed like really basic, you know, libertarian principle stuff, and they said that the people in the audience were independents or Republicans or Democrats that had decided they weren't going to vote for either Trump or Clinton. And I don't want to get on the conspiracy theory train and say that some of these people were planted, but some of the things like were really ridiculous. And definitely seemed, I don't know, but I mean, we can't really put that past statists, can we? Like there was something about, oh, well, you know, some woman got up and she said that she had been at the Pulse nightclub shooting and, you know, she had to rip up her shirt to put a tourniquet on her friend. Again, very heartbreaking, very sad. And she said, well, you know, how is making it easier to get guns and military automatic weapons, how does that make us safer? And she claimed to be a gun owner, but then she said it's easier to buy a gun than it is to get a driver's license and drive a car. Which, you know, I've done videos on when people say it's easier to get a gun than birth control. I mean, it's not really all that easy to get a gun unless you have a lot of money or, well, I mean, I guess if you're getting some really cheapo thing. But you have to have some money. You have to have a clean record. It's just, you know, you have to go through a background check with the FBI, through the National Background Check System. So it kind of makes me say, like, okay, well, if you think it's that easy, like, are you really a gun owner? If you don't realize that automatic weapons are already banned for, like, everyday people, are you really a gun owner? But hey, again, that could just be me pulling a nutty on this. So yeah, mixed feelings. There were some good, there were some bad. I, of course, don't agree with everything that Gary Johnson has to say. I think he's the best out of the 3 out there, certainly. And, I mean, I recognize that he's trying to take a pragmatic approach and try to get some votes there and bring people over slowly. All in all, at the latest polls, he's polling at 12% in the polls, and according to the Commission on Presidential Debates, you need 15% to be invited into the debates. So he's only 3% away. The key word there, though, is invited. I mean, we saw stuff like this with Ron Paul getting shunned in, the previous elections. Just because he gets 15% doesn't mean that he's going to be invited, and I'm sure he won't, and it will be a big blowout. I mean, he's already suing them to change the rules as to how to get into the debates. But at this point, anything that starts bringing the ideas of liberty and libertarianism and voluntarism to a wider audience, I mean, education is really the best that you can do. You can't force these ideas onto anyone. They have to come to them on their own terms. So all in all, hopefully the town hall will help get some people on board and bring the ideas of liberty to a wider audience. So that is my first take. I will be discussing this a little bit more in depth Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern on Liberty Late Night. Shameless plug, come check it out. And thanks for watching. Bye.